back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is the unofficial 40 brought to you by Midfirst Bank. And boy, that was abrupt. Sorry, orchestra.
Coaching changes.
You're not getting paid. Go. It is the best thing that you're going to get, or the closest thing you're going to get to football season here on the unofficial 40, brought to you by Midfirst Bank. Go to midfirst.com/U40. Apply now for the OU Rewards credit card. So we'll tell you more about that later on in the show. But guys, obviously, everybody following the coaching news, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. So let's talk about OU's almost near win against Baylor in basketball. No? Don't want to do that?
Yes.
I thought it was an entertaining game.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Other than...
Josh,
I've got to own something in that story.
By the way,
I know I'm offering something in basketball. It's a revolutionary idea. I literally didn't watch any of that game. I'm going to just own that. Right until the very end, when I saw one of you guys tweet like, "Oh, you down 2, this is getting interesting, blah, blah." So I flip it over, and they've got the ball at half court, and they're dishing to Austin Reeves. I may have had some role in him missing that shot. I'm not sure, but it's a possibility. Yeah, it's possible.
It's a classic
I really
jinx
might have screwed the whole program.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
it. Wasn't.
I am not the president of the Austin Reeves fan club like Eddie and Bob are, but I didn't have a problem with that shot. I mean, it was an open look.
No, it's a shot that you have to take.
It was a little bit weird that he leaned instead of just going straight up.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think he was anticipating
that was the part that did
contact. I don't know. There was a guy coming over the top there.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have.
Obviously, I watch a lot of basketball, but he looked like he was in a hurry.
Yeah, he could have shot faked it. I mean, and then
there's a lot of time
because there was I think 5 seconds when he put it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 when Baylor got the rebound or something.
Oh well, it was definitely the shot to take.
It was shocking. Shocking to say that they had a shot to win that game.
The way Doolittle played,
because Bob, Doolittle was bad, and like Bob, I thought you kind of nailed the flow of that game in the first half. You're like, yeah, it's probably going to end up being like 64 to
45.
There was like 4 or 5 instances in that game where it got to kind of bubbled up to 8 or 9 points, and you thought this could get fairly ugly here if Baylor goes on an 8-0 run, and it never did. So I don't know. I thought it was encouraging in some ways. I think they'll learn from that experience.
It's not. I mean, this is a season.
Nobody grabbed a chair from the bench and brandished it over their head. So I mean, they haven't been the biggest embarrassing thing to happen to the conference this week.
Well, Kansas's grip on the Big 12 slipping away quickly because of that wasn't even a chair, it was a stool.
It was a stool.
I mean, you weren't going to hurt anybody with that thing. I mean, I'm not defending D'Souza here, but what's the most he was?
It's an all-time photo.
Yeah, it is.
Like still photography is it's officially back because of that photo.
The still photo is not dead.
I mean, if you're Sylvia De Sosa, who has just been suspended indefinitely by Kansas University, but if you're him, you have to get that blown up and put into a fat head on your wall.
That would be a great fat head. But you got to get the woman.
Hell yeah, that's me.
The woman grabbing his ankle and screaming. You have to get her in the shot.
Oh yes, yeah.
The only thing that would have made that photo better is you could see the back of her shirt was lifted up a little bit. If she had had a tramp stamp right there, it would have made it like the perfect. It would have won a Pulitzer.
Are Kansas fans trashy enough to do that? Are there trashy Kansas fans?
Oh yeah. Have you?
There's got to be.
I don't know.
Have you ever sat in the stands in Norman at a KU game, like, or sit in the stands at?
I've just always figured those
tournament?
are like trashy Oklahoma people that are Kansas fans.
No, when I was in college, I was working at the Service Merchandise, and one day I took a lunch break, and Kansas was playing, and so I met my friend, and I was going to watch a half and then go back to work, hopefully not getting fired in the process. And literally, my friend, in the middle, there were so many Kansas fans. OU wasn't good then. There were so many Kansas fans, so many trashy ones. He just yells out, "Did you guys show up for the Leonard Skinner concert in the parking lot? What's going on here?" I mean,
what'd they say?
I think, it was only funny to us, too.
Oh.
Kind of like it was just now.
That must be Duncan humor.
It was Duncan humor, yes. He was from Duncan. I've seen a fair share of, hippies and stuff like that.
I thought it was a great moment of college basketball, and it should be remembered as such.
It's just, the
funny
whole
than
thing.
anything.
The whole thing is really funny. I mean, stealing the basketball when the game is over, like who does that?
Of course, it was the white guy. Playing till the whistle.
And then standing over a guy. I mean,
like you just won, you covered too. Get to the locker room. I'm sure the boosters and alumni are happy. Won the Sunflower Showdown. You're gonna get even more money from Adidas now.
So yeah, I mean, and then Bill Self was on the teleconference this morning, basically like saying, "Yeah, we're screwed. We just don't know how screwed yet."
It's like Bob was saying though when he got here. I mean, De Souza only played like 10 minutes against Oklahoma when he was down here. I mean, I can't say that I've watched every Kansas game, but it doesn't seem like he's playing a ton.
He was expected to be a star.
He's
not.
scrub minutes.
He's just not. And like
it's because he sat. He was the guy that had to sit out, right?
He's the reason the FBI is already on campus in Lawrence.
Yes, yes, he is. But if you're on the court in a 20-point blowout in the last seconds, we can kind of know you're not a huge part of the team here.
You think Bill Self just watches like San Antonio games just to see how close Pop is to retiring? It's like, that's my next job.
He's gonna have to kill Becky Hammonds first.
He could take over for the Bulls. I'd be more than happy if that rumor came true.
But the prominent one out there is that the Spurs ownership and management.
It's because of his connection
Yeah.
back to R.C. Buford.
Right.
They were college roommates or something at Oklahoma State, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
that's your basketball segment.
And there you. But no, I think
Oklahoma State might need a head coach here in a couple weeks. They're on 6.
Mike Boynton was glad that pep rally happened
Yeah,
yesterday.
no kidding, right?
Because nobody's throwing a pep rally for that basketball team anytime soon.
They need something because they are not very good.
The only loss they haven't taken yet is the Cunningham kid deciding that he's going to declare a waiver that he wants out of his letter of intent.
I think as long as his brother's there, that probably won't happen. But I suppose that they could be a little. Run off like a 2-16. Not going to be good.
Are they going to win a game in the Big 12?
Oh yeah,
No,
they'll win a game at
you
some
saw
point.
TCU beat Tech after we watched TCU Saturday look
Tech.
terrible.
So is OU the 5th best team in the conference then?
I think it's up for debate among
Tech
any of
or
them.
OU?
It'd be like Tech, West Virginia, Baylor, Kansas. That's your top 4. 5 through 10 is just a logjam of mediocrity.
All right, so let's move into what everybody wants to hear about, which is what's going on with OU and the staff. Josh, you might just kind of catch people up on some of the things that you've put on the message board. We've all been kind of trading back and forth, and Eddie's come up with some good stuff, and Josh has been, I know, hitting a lot of different people. But Josh, just kind of give us an overview of kind of where we stand right now and the things that you put on the board.
Sure. Well, obviously everybody knows with Jay Boulware leaving last week after our last pod, that's where everything kind of started. And I think the assumption was, well, they're just going to fill the running back spot. And there was a lot of talk. I know we talked about it privately, how much flexibility there was within the staff. Does Shane Beamer move to running backs coach? Does Kel Gundy move there? And they have an option to, it felt like Lincoln Riley could go in a lot of different directions. I've talked to a few people that told me there was not going to be any movement. They wanted some, some continuity in what they were doing. We're going to bring in a running backs coach. He'll coach running backs. Going to go in that direction. And, I guess that's fine. I certainly understand the argument for Cale Gundy. I don't think there's any running back coach in the country that has more scalps on the wall than he does. That guy's done a lot of great work. But if that's what they want to do, okay, there's guys out there that you can go get. I have struggled to hear any concrete names. I know everybody ran to DeMarco Murray. Guys, you can weigh in on this, but it feels like if it was going to be DeMarco Murray, it would be done.
Yeah. And
am I crazy?
No, I'll say this. I talked to someone today, and I just get the feeling that they want to put to bed, the Joey Maguire situation before they move on to, solidifying what they're going to do on the offensive side.
Like they haven't even broached the subject yet?
I'm sure Lincoln has reached out to people, but I think it's in the beginning stages about what they want to do. Are they going to do it on offense? Like you said, they can do a lot of different things. I do think like Cale Gundy, probably after being at running backs for 17 years, probably doesn't want to move backward. I mean, you just don't want to do that in your career. Now he's the eye in the sky, so he's the second most. Basically, he and Bill have the I can't even remember now.
Yeah,
Bill does.
Yeah, because they alternate when they come in on Mondays.
Okay, so yeah, I mean he's got a co-title now. He's the eye in the sky. He's an inside receivers coach. That's like where Dana Holgorsen was at Texas Tech before he became a head coach. Like that is in the air raid system, like the inside receivers coach, eye in the sky. That's next man up.
And that's why it makes sense if Shane Beamer moved
if the
into
coronavirus strikes Lincoln Riley, then Cale Gundy, as long as he doesn't catch the coronavirus, becomes offensive coordinator.
I guess I just don't really understand that. I mean, I understand what they're doing, and I understand what they've been doing for a while now, but...
Oh, you don't... I thought you didn't understand the coronavirus there for a minute.
I don't understand that. I saw it a couple times earlier. Is that something to do with the Republicans? And the impeachment trial?
No, that has nothing to do.
No, but the eye in the sky thing, like I understand that that's like the second in command in the offense or whatever,
right.
But from the discussion of moving Cale Gundy back to running backs, would that really be seen as a step back or a step down? I mean, does it really matter when it's all said and done?
Could it be that Cale's done it and maybe he didn't like it as much as he thought he would, and now Shane Beamer wants that type of chance?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, okay, so Beamer came in. He was the 10th assistant. He was the extra guy. So before Beamer was there, remember, Jay Boulware was handling running backs and H-backs. And
special teams.
And special teams all on his own. And then Beamer kind of took his job and split it in half. So you could go back to putting it all on someone on the offensive side if you wanted to. You're just going to need someone to help Beamer with special teams, whether that's your defensive hire or whatever.
Guys, and Kerry's right.
All, and I'm sorry, and this is all assuming that nothing happens with Ruffin, which I don't think we're assuming that anymore. So sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. And I just wanted to kind of back you up for people that don't realize this is a real thing. Both Lincoln Riley and Dana Holgorsen were inside wide receivers coaches before they became either co-OC or full-time OCs. So, like, that's, for whatever reason, that is the mechanism that seems in this Mike Leach kind of coaching tree. That's the way it seems to go for whatever reason. So, like I said, it's not just something where, it's kind of imagined. Like, that's the way it seems to work. I don't know. I won't claim that I know why it works that way, but that does seem to be the level of elevation. You move in that direction.
Are we at the point now, though, where we say with Cale Gundy, I mean, at least for me personally, I kind of feel like it's like
the ship has sailed?
Yeah, I mean, kind of in a way, like I think in a way that he just doesn't want to, like, why would you be a head coach? He's making good money. He's been doing it for 20 plus years. Like,
but now
why do I want to put up with that bullshit?
Yeah, but now his kids are getting out of school. I mean, he's an empty nester.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the kids have been out for a while now. They're both in college.
I think Casey, I'd heard that maybe he's going to go to law school, give up the GA stuff.
Really? Well, I mean, I just, in a way, I kind of feel like I don't know if he wants to take on a new role or a new task as far as being a head coach or an offensive coordinator somewhere else. I think he's really comfortable with what he's doing now.
But he's told me specifically on multiple occasions, like, he does want to be an offensive coordinator.
Okay.
He does have aspirations. He wouldn't mind being a head coach, but it has to be a good situation.
I think that I project that he's a lot older than he really is. Like, he's only 47.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that age.
I'm not saying there is. It might be a little old, but
it's because you graduated high school in 1990 doesn't make you an old.
I thought you were going to say 2005, and it kind of does these days. I have spent so much time on TikTok over the last week and a half.
He continues to be vexed by TikTok.
It's mind-blowing. This must be what...
By the way, Twitter flagged the TikTok video that was out there from Lincoln.
That someone posted of
Oh,
Zach,
really?
of Zach Heffley.
It's because it had music. It had copyrighted music.
But isn't
No,
that
that's
what
part of TikTok.
Isn't that TikTok?
But
Oh,
it was
man.
but Twitter. I mean,
But
TikTok. If it's on TikTok, you can do. I'm sure the video was fine on TikTok, but on Twitter, they're like, nope, can't do that here.
I mean, it's from TikTok, though, so I don't know. People do that all the time. I don't know if maybe it's just because of the audience that it reaches or what.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it's like YouTube. It's like our videos. They play the music in the background at practice.
Yeah.
And it gets flagged.
Whatevs.
So, but here's the thing. Like, I've been saying this. I kind of been banging this drum. By the way, huge news. I have been unblocked by Cale Gundy on Twitter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Means Kale's about to take that job.
He needs an ally, apparently. So, if you want to say I'm a mouthpiece for Cale Gundy now, I'm just giving you information to make your own determination. I mean, if I'm a coach somewhere, with Mike Gundy doing as well as he had, Cale Gundy sitting there, he's worked under Lincoln Riley now for 4 years. He was a college quarterback. Like, what about his resume doesn't make you think he could be a good offensive coordinator? Like, when is somebody going to take that chance on him? That's what because I think he could be a successful offensive coordinator. We don't know, but he's got the pedigree for it.
And yeah, how many guys have worked around more quality offensive coordinators and staff than he has?
Yeah.
I mean, that list is not long.
Well, I have
And
to
you know,
think
before he came to OU, he was Watson Brown's offensive coordinator at UAB.
that's the thing is like in a way he's already at that position as far as the experience. I don't think that. I think the next logical step for him would be taking a head coaching job somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that I just don't know if he wants to do that at some point.
But if he's a successful offensive coordinator at a big school, he's going to get that head coaching job. Like, I don't know that he's going to get a head coaching job at a shitty place.
And I just don't like logically.
Remember when Dana Holgerson went to Houston and then he went to Oklahoma State and then West Virginia hired him? It was like a 3-year arc for him.
Yeah, and it was like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It was like at year after another.
Right.
I don't know. I don't. Cale Gundy doesn't strike me as somebody that wants to be the head coach at Central Michigan.
Well, that's
you know
what
I
I'm
mean?
saying. That's why
Or
he
like
should go be an
Eastern
offensive
Michigan.
coordinator. If he went to go be an offensive coordinator like Oregon or something.
Sure.
And they were just lights out, he would get a head coaching job immediately. It's just who's going to give him that chance.
Well, I think with
yeah,
the type of money he's making in Norman right now, though, I think you could argue that like taking the OC job at Oregon, is that not a lateral move from what he's doing now?
If he's calling the plays, it's
sure,
not lateral.
Yeah.
Because this is always going to be Lincoln Riley's offense as long as Lincoln
absolutely.
Riley is the head coach.
Especially
no
here
one's
over the
ever
last,
going to say,
5
what a
years.
job Cale Gundy is doing with this offense. Just nobody looks at it. Nobody's ever going to look at it that way.
Yeah, I that's kind of why I think he's backed himself in a corner now, especially here as the time goes on. And I don't know.
Because the perception is what you have, which is everybody just perceives because he's been here so long, he doesn't want to go anywhere. And that's not true.
But if he goes back to running backs coach, I think it would.
Yeah, then the perception becomes, well, he's a lifer. He's never going to
He's doing whatever the program wants him to do.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Well, I mean, he's not going anywhere this year.
No.
The carousel's over for the most part.
Well, it's still running.
Well, I mean, for use purposes, but who out there, unless somebody dies in the next couple months,
Yeah.
nobody really has
I
any
see what
spots
you're saying.
open.
Yeah, the offensive coordinator stuff.
Yeah.
Well, in rolling it back here to earlier in the week, a lot of kind of things started flying around because of Zach Hansen was tweeting about being out on the road recruiting, and that's simply because Jay Boulware was hired at Texas and they could send someone else out. They could get a waiver. It's pretty easy to do. They did that.
They did with Viney before.
Viney did that. Was it after Kish retired?
No, but they have done it with Chip before. It was actually kind of.
It would have been
when they hired
before they
Cooks?
hired Cooks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was during that period. It was that long ago. Yeah.
So it's not unprecedented. It happens quite a bit. But that's what it is. It's replacing Jay Boulware. Now, I know, Josh, you've been kind of tracking all this stuff. I did talk to someone today that confirmed that Ruffin McNeil is not out on the road recruiting with the rest of it. He was at Junior Day He was, from what I was told, he was introduced to players and their families as the outside linebackers coach, but he is not actively out there on the road recruiting. And Eddie pointed this out yesterday that his contract expires February 8th, or was it?
No,
it was 8
at the
days.
end of this month, isn't
January 31st, so 9 days from now.
So his contract is getting ready to expire.
Which it's not unusual for that to happen. I would put that out there.
Right.
That as far as guys get their contracts renewed, usually at the Board of Regents meeting, which will be coming up a
Which
week
has
from
changed
today.
from the middle of the summer now to January, February. It used to be a mid-summer thing. We always now they've moved
it was June, and then it
now they've
changed
moved
recently. So now, Josh, there are all these questions about the future of Ruffin. When I think probably a week ago, we still were kind of hearing, there's probably no chance that Ruffin goes anywhere. Now it seems like there's a little bit of daylight there, possibly that there could be some movement with Ruffin.
Yeah, I was of the mind that, guys, he's just going to be there however long. I think I don't think that's unfair to kind of summarize. That's how we all felt. Like it was just going to keep going almost indefinitely. Because, I mean, if they could go through it last year, what difference does next year make? It just felt like the same evolution. But I had a conversation with somebody late last week, and it just sounded like while there still was absolutely no indication that Lincoln Riley was going to say, hey, Ruff, I think maybe it's time for us to make a different move, go in a different direction. I got the impression talking to the person that maybe Ruffin felt like, okay, it's about time. Like I need to do something else. I know obviously he's got some health issues. There are some other things going on. So there is reason to believe that had some merit. And then talking to some people, and really at that time it was kind of like, that makes some sense, but I wasn't all the way in. And then yesterday when I started to hear the Joey McGuire stuff, which I know we've kind of touched on peripherally, but
nice.
The talk was that he was a defensive candidate, not a guy that would take the running back spot. Well, for those that don't follow this every day like we do, there's no opening on the defensive staff. That doesn't exist right now. So something would have to give, and I don't think any of us believe Ruffin's going to move to the offensive side of the ball and take that spot, because that doesn't add up with what I was told before that we've already talked about. So kind of throw that off the table. Well, it kind of added, the two conversations kind of fit together pretty easily. And then, Kerry, I know you've had some more conversations, like you said this morning, and it just sounds like maybe Ruffin McNeil and Oklahoma are kind of coming to a completely amicable ending.
Well, and here's the thing.
I think it would be a retirement. It's not like he's
Yeah.
wanting to coach and then going to go find another job somewhere. I would think it's been a hell of a career type thing.
You think they'd keep him in some sort of administrative role?
I think it'd be if he wants to.
I'm curious, and
I don't
this
know.
is
I
kind
think
of
he might just go live on River Rat and do his thing.
Yeah, I could see that. But there's also, which is kind of grim to talk about, I don't know what Merv Johnson's role is going to be moving forward. Had a terrible car accident. Thank God he was okay. He's recovering, but he was pretty beat up coming out of that thing. So I don't know what the future is for him. I would assume he'll, take time to get back healthy again and then, see what happens there. They're just certainly not going to dump him out on his, rear end or anything.
Sure.
I mean, but you got to wonder, could Ruffin fill that spot? So is that like you said, is that something he'd want to do? Would he rather just be out being a river rat? I mean, he obviously loves, being out on the water, and that's about, if it's not about recruiting, that's the only other thing he tweets about. Yeah. As soon as he hits that boat in the water, he's tweeting.
Well, it very much seems like we're in a holding pattern, if that's really what you want to call it, and it's basically Joe McGuire. What do you want to? Where do you want to coach? You want to coach at Waco or Norman?
The cards.
I'll say this:
you're going to coach in the Big 12. You want to live in Norman or you want to live in Waco?
I made a phone call before the podcast, and here's kind of Baylor. I think I can safely say I talked to some sources in Baylor that are inside the program, well connected, and their thinking kind of is, okay, we really are screwed with recruiting now that Rule is left and he's taken some people with him. And, the only person that could possibly hold this together for us is Joey McGuire. So they're almost in. It feels like Baylor is in a desperation mode to try and keep him, which means throwing whatever they can to entice him to stay. So from the Baylor point of view, that's kind of the feeling I get, the vibe that I get is that they're going to do everything they can to keep him. And Josh, I know you've talked to some other people close to the situation that, I mean, you might share kind of what you're hearing there.
Sure. And for anybody out there who gets worried, our members, this is going on the board as I'm literally talking. I'm typing something to go on the board, so nobody panic that it was in the podcast first.
I'll have a stopwatch on that, and we'll see.
Yes. But what I will say is I talked to someone today, and I went to bed last night kind of with the impression that we'd probably know today. That's still kind of what I'm thinking, but if it went into Thursday, I don't think that's a huge sign or a huge shock. I think that's just him kind of going through his choices now. What it sounds a lot like is that Joey McGuire likes Lincoln Riley a lot, has a lot of interest in working on that staff, working with Riley, knows kind of the reputation, and obviously saw what Oklahoma did defensively last year, and I think sees a role for him to fit into what Alex Grinch is doing. At the same time, I'm told that Baylor is offering him heaps and heaps of money. So I don't know if Oklahoma is willing to match that. I don't because I don't know what that number is. So I don't know if it's just astronomical and OU would be crazy to match it or what it is. But that sounds like it's the decision. And I will say, we were talking before we came on, guys, and for those that say, oh, well, it's money, that's not really how Joey McGuire is wired. I mean, we talked about it before. Joey turned down Texas twice while he was the head coach at Cedar Hill, basically because he was more comfortable at Cedar Hill. His son was still there, and there was a lot of connection to stay at Cedar Hill when he could have taken a 200-300% pay raise to go work at Texas.
And this is important too, and this goes back to the Ruffin deal. Like, if OU does have to kind of open up the pocketbooks in order to get him, he would have to have some type of an associate head coach or assistant head coach title. Actually, assistant, I believe, which is what the title that Ruffin holds is. So, I mean, it does seem like you're in a situation now where one, it has to do with the other. Like, you can either have Ruffin still here or you can let Joey McGuire go or anybody else of that caliber that you're looking at bringing in.
Well, and what we've always talked about with McNeil, the value that we hear from people is his, the way he connects with the players, and they all love him. And,
yeah.
There's a kind of grandfatherly thing about him, and that has its place. I certainly won't say Joey McGuire is a grandfather, but man, the kids love him. Like, I mean, whether it was Cedar Hill days, whether, you listen to people talk about him at Baylor, the whole underswelling that he had to become the next head coach from within his own roster, like, they love that guy. And I think that's a pretty easy transition, though obviously OU's players would have to get to know him, all those things. But he has a gift that some coaches don't have to connect to players as people rather than just, student pupil kind of thing.
Would Charleston Rambo be the only OU player from Cedar Hill at this point that would know Joey?
That would be the only one to my knowledge. I'm trying to think like maybe there's a walk-on I don't know of or something like that. But yeah, that's the only guy that absolutely played for Joey and knows him.
So basically, everybody's like, oh, you're going to wait till this is announced till you do the pod? Like, no, we're just going to do the pod because we don't really know.
It might be old news.
It could be old news. Yeah, it certainly could be. But basically, how we see things kind of breaking down is, I think, just hit me if I'm wrong here, Josh, but the Joey McGuire thing has to work itself out, and then, the Ruffin stuff has to work itself out, and then you decide, basically, if you have another coaching opening. And on the offensive side, and then try and fill it from there.
I think that's pretty fair.
We don't get the feeling that they're actively, trying to hire, narrow down to this candidate or that candidate at the running back position.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's that far along. Like I said, I keep waiting to hear kind of some names come along and be floated, and I haven't heard that name really emerge. And kind of to touch, I mean, like I know the McGuire conversation is what everybody's more interested in, but the DeMarco Murray thing, I think a lot of people are like, oh, DeMarco Murray, and it does make some sense. The dots, yeah. Exactly, and I get that, and I'm not saying it would even be a bad hire. I've talked to a few people, and this is something that comes up a lot when you get these ex-NFL guys that, like DeMarco, just had tremendous success. It's hard sometimes for them to humble themselves to the level, I've got to go recruit this, Johnny, 4-star from North Dallas, and I have to go in and act like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread when I know he's not the player I was. And I think that's tough sometimes for guys to step into those shoes. And I don't, like I said, DeMarco's been there for 1 year. We don't really know what he is as a recruiter, but I've heard that is at least a ongoing concern. Somebody doesn't, the people just don't know where he is as a recruiter yet.
Well, and I've reached out myself to people close to DeMarco, and I just really haven't gotten any kind of read that he is involved at this point. But like everybody else, it's easy to connect those dots, and so we mentioned him, and we'll probably continue to mention him. But as of this point, I've got no indication that there are any kind of serious talks between OU and DeMarco at this point for the opening. And like I said, part of that could be because Lincoln's not really working on that part of this yet. Maybe that happens once the McGuire thing gets put to bed.
I feel like that was, and I was part of the problem. I threw it out there immediately after Jay Boulware, the news about him going to Texas came about. But I was like, yeah, call DeMarco, see what he wants to do. So we'll see.
It makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense.
They must feel that side will come together so fast that it's not urgent at this point.
It almost makes you think that whoever they go after has a prior relationship. Maybe was one of the better running backs of all time to play at Oklahoma. We'll see. And I do think, though, that just to throw it out there, that I do think that DeMarco would be a little bit better recruiter than people probably give him credit for. Like, just being DeMarco Murray, I think, gets you in a house. And I'm definitely, I think anybody that has been around on the board long enough knows that I'm not somebody that would just say that because he's a former player, I think he'd be a good coach. I think DeMarco would do a good job, though.
All right. I want to remind you guys, the podcast is brought to you by Midfirst Bank. Go to midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40. Why do you want to go there? Well, you can sign up for the OU Rewards credit card. You can apply right there online. There's a lot of specials going right now. Of course, 0% for the first year. So first 12 billing cycles, you don't have to pay any interest on the credit card. Also, don't forget you can receive a free Bluetooth speaker when you apply in person at any of the participating banking centers. You get to redeem rewards points for cash back, gift cards, merchandise, travel, and it's got the big OU logo on it. So every time you take it out, everybody's going to know you're a big OU fan. Also, you can redeem points for fan gear, OU fan gear, and OU student bursars accounts, so you can pay off tuition for those kids that are getting ready to go to college. So go apply for it now. Midfirst Bank, the Midfirst Bank OU Rewards credit card, midfirst.com/U40. Support the pod. We appreciate their support for the pod as our title sponsor of the Unofficial 40 podcast. Okay, so I know you guys, we can get back into coaching if there's something you guys want to add to it, but Eddie, Josh, I know you guys were both out at high schools today. They had the junior day that happened over the weekend. What's, Bob, maybe we'll start with you. What was your takeaway from junior day?
Very strong in-state flavor. Even though the commitment and that Josh was able to go look at today was in Houston, the majority of the focus, it felt like Sunday, was a lot of kids in-state making a couple offers for 2022, and that's what we sort of been saying is that is maybe as down as it felt 2019 and 2020 were. That doesn't mean the state can't bounce back, and it doesn't mean that OU won't continue to recruit the state if they need to, and that's what they're doing. That's 4 offers now in 2022, including 2 that happened Sunday. So Lincoln Riley's well aware of the people that think they don't recruit the state hard hard enough. It's just not true. It's just about, does the talent match the level of where you need to be at if you're going to be a significant contributor for the Sooners? Not just be on the roster, not just be there, but actually be someone who can make a difference.
Josh, what was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I thought really just how Oklahoma really maximized what was a fairly minimal event. It wasn't like there were 15, 20 guys there. I thought Oklahoma just did a good job developing relationships with some key guys. I thought they did a really nice job addressing Gentry Williams, who I don't know how much I've talked about it on the pod, but he came away from the Peach Bowl with some concerns. I got the impression he was a guy that he was there. So he saw it in person. I think it jarred him a little bit, and I think I don't know if he was ready to commit to Oklahoma, but he was leaning real hard in that direction. And I get the impression that after that happened, he kind of thought, okay, I need to look around, kind of see what else is out there. Obviously, I'm sure LSU made an impression on him that night. So I think they did a good job kind of bringing – I don't want to say bringing him back into the fold because that takes it too far, but just kind of calming concerns and saying, hey, man, we could Lincoln Riley made a joke with him, like, we could have used you out there that night, that kind of thing. We'd have put you out there, which is, of course, what a high school star wants to hear. So I think they did a good job there. And, we can get into the whole Cullen Montgomery situation a little bit, but I can say before we go there, Montgomery did not come to the event expecting to commit. So Oklahoma clearly did a good job with him, selling both he and his mother.
Well, yeah, and tell people about the commitment in Montgomery.
Yeah, this is a guy that I've seen since he was a freshman in high school. I went back and watched him back in the days when, he was playing with guys like Walker Little and Marvin Wilson and some of those guys. So, he's just an outstanding. I'm sorry, he followed them. He played with Jalen Waddle. I'm getting a year off there, but watched him since he was a freshman. And I was talking to his head coach today, Steve Lease, and we'll have a video interview of that interview as well as me talking to Montgomery himself. But Lease said he had a Power 5 school come in earlier this year, I guess late last year, and basically said he's the most improved lineman from freshman to junior year in the country. And that's really – he's grown tremendously, and he is the kind of guy – and I know it's becoming cliche because we say it about almost every offensive lineman that OU gets – he is very versatile. He is a guy, big, broad-shouldered, real wide-bodied guy. He could play guard if he needs to. I think his feet are probably good enough to work at right tackle if that's what Oklahoma wanted to do with him. So there are a lot of ways they can use him. And then you throw in, like I said, the fact that he is a high-level enthusiasm guy. He is very excited about things. His teammate is an Ohio State commitment. I don't think Oklahoma's really going to be able to get in the door there. But when you look at Cullen Montgomery and the way he kind of is outgoing and knows a lot of people, and the fact that it is an unbelievably historic year for offensive linemen in Houston, and the fact that OU has him going to camps and all these events, and he can go talk to Reuben Fatheree and Bryce Foster and all these other guys in the city that Oklahoma is recruiting, well, I think, it's not going to be a deciding factor, but it's one more chip in OU's favor.
Any other, you talked about I'm having brain freeze. Gentry Williams, a little bit in the progress they made there. Was there anybody else that just really stood out as a guy that maybe they made a really good step forward with over the weekend?
I would say, and Bob, you could probably talk on this too, is Jordan Mukes, the kid from Choctaw.
See, we didn't know if it was Mukes or Mux or
Muke.
I'm glad. I'm glad you threw it out there.
To be fair, I'm going with Mukes, but I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that one. But he is a guy that we kind of knew Oklahoma liked in December. You'd heard they'd swung by the school. They'd kind of checked in on him. But last week, I believe it was Thursday night before the junior day, Alex Grinch went to his basketball game and watched him play basketball for 2.5 or 3 quarters. He was there for quite a while, as I understand it. And this is a 6'2", 6'3",
legitimate,
180 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah. And guys, did you see the pictures of his arms?
Yeah,
Yes.
you were.
he
man crushing.
Yeah, like he and Gentry Williams are like, that's what it's supposed to look like outside. Like they're supposed to be that long and athletic. And, I know talking to a few people, and I'll get back to Mukes in a second, but talking to somebody yesterday kind of about the coaching stuff, they were talking about their enthusiasm for this defense because of guys like Harrington coming in. And some of these guys they brought in, the length. They're like, we're going to look like like when you looked at our secondary in that LSU game and the LSU secondary, it didn't look like the same thing. Like we got these short, little quick guys, and they got these big, long-armed, physical DBs, and now they feel like they're starting to move in that direction. And Mukes and Williams could be the next evolution of that because, like I said, they're far bigger than any corner OU has signed recently, maybe with the exception of Josh Eaton. So Mukes is, like I said, he's an interesting guy because I think what Oklahoma wants to see from him is can he run? We've heard Alex Grinch talk all about, we want to see track times. We want to see 100-meter speed. We want to see guys that can really run, not just their coach on a timer telling me they run 4.5. They want to see stuff they can verify. And so I think that's going to be a big piece of it for him. He's told me he's going to run track. He's apparently been a long jump guy for a while, and that's kind of been his strength in track, but he's going to run this year. I think that'll help him. And Oklahoma's going to go to a spring practice, and it won't shock me at all if he picks up an offer. And if he does, this is a kid that grew up an Oklahoma fan. That will have a lot of weight with him.
Josh, Mukes, there's some 2021 names that we knew for like months and months. Where did he come from? How good was his junior tape?
It was, it's one of those things where I guess it's probably somewhat, again, I don't live near Oklahoma, these are the things. I've missed a little bit that Choctaw's talent is really starting to grow. There's starting to be better talent moving out that direction in Oklahoma City because they've got several guys. They've got a 2022 offensive lineman in Cade McConnell that's made several visits to Oklahoma and has a chance to be a guy along with Jacob Sexton in the class that could pick up an offer on the offensive line. So there are a lot of pieces there. And I watched his junior tape. He is physical. He is, like I said, he's every bit the listed size. He runs pretty well. He moves his feet. There are some raw things you can tell. He's very lean right now. There's a lot for him to work on, but he's a junior in high school. That's okay. I like what he brings. I don't know that he is a no doubt corner, but you think of him as maybe like a nickel. Could that be because I still don't think we know what Oklahoma wants in its nickelbacks because it's not Buki. That's not the ideal. But I don't know what the ideal is yet. So I could see him fitting there. I don't know if it's safety. He's going to be as physical as they want him to be, but maybe he could play the strong, come down in the box, play it that way. But if you were going to tell me or ask me today, will he or won't he be offered? I bet he picks up an offer.
All right. As we sit here on a Wednesday, close about 1 o'clock, we're sitting here watching the Senior Bowl practices getting underway, and boy, were we saved when Jalen Hurts decided just to wear an OU helmet at practice. How about that bleep show? Look, I understand it was for charity. That's great. You're in Alabama. That never would have happened if this thing was was taking place like in Dallas or Florida or something.
Oh, I don't think it was just because it was in Alabama. I think it was a good way for Senior Bowl to basically give back to charity. But to say that I'm not cheering for the defense would be a lie.
Didn't sound like his first
it didn't
day.
sound like day one was all that great for Jalen.
No shit.
But it's not like it's not anything that we don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he can carry the South team to a win over the North on Saturday.
Look, this is not Lamar Jackson. This is not Lamar Jackson racism. Jalen Hurts, I don't think he can play quarterback in the NFL. I just don't. I don't think he's good enough.
No, it's the same things that we talked about during the year, right? Late on reads, doesn't have the accuracy to advance at that level.
It is very convenient that Taysom Hill can be the guy that you all say he should be a Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill's white and he went to BYU. It takes all the is this racist pressure off.
I don't know if he can. I'm not going to say that he can't. I think it's going to have to be a very special system, though.
I don't even people are
people
he could be Lamar Jackson's backup. Robert Griffin can't even be Lamar Jackson's backup. And Robert Griffin could throw the ball a hell of a lot better than Jalen Hurts did.
Yeah, I feel like the Taysom Hill stuff, everybody's like, well, if you're an athlete, you can just do that. If you can throw the ball maybe even a little bit, anybody can do that. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that's
because not everybody has Sean Payton calling plays.
Exactly. Or the system that or the offensive mind to be able to use them like they do. And I'm not saying that there's other teams that won't and can't, but at the same time, I do think it takes a little bit away of just how amazing Taysom Hill's been in that role, that particular role.
He's just a ball player, man.
Yeah, he's a great football player.
Which I
haven't seen too much from Neville down in Mobile, though. I saw a couple people retweeting things this morning after day one, but I mean, have I missed anything, Josh?
No, like I said, everything I saw was he had a great first day. A lot of people really liked him. Good. And I think the thing that everybody seemed to like is the thing that I from what I always gathered, and you guys would know better than me, was kind of the knock on him at times was his motor. Everybody loved how explosive he was in the reps, how he was hustling around, doing all the little things that, these guys want to see in this situation. They want to see that how big this stage is and that you're trying to, frankly, make some money for yourself. It sounds like he was doing those things. And like I said, I think if there was any knock on Neville at times, there was always a feeling there was such a huge gap from one play to the next on what you might get.
Well, I mean, it was pretty clear by the plan that they set forward for him. He was not an effective guy at 60 snaps a game. He just wasn't. He's not a guy that can go out there and just go full bore for an entire game. He's got to. And in the NFL, nobody's playing every rep either. So I mean, they're rotating. But I mean, you look at his stats. He had a fantastic year. I mean, all the disruptive stats, the only person better than him was Ronnie Perkins. I mean, tackles for loss, sacks, and I think he might have been, was he the leader or was Kenneth Murray the leader in tackles for loss? They were both way up there.
I would assume Murray, but probably pretty close.
I think
Ronnie was leading
15.
going into the, wasn't he?
He was a sacks leader. I don't know if he
Ronnie
was a tackles for loss
tackle for loss leader too.
I think he was second behind Murray, maybe.
Oh, it's clear with Gallimore at 325 and 65 snaps a game was just terrible.
Yeah.
But at 305 and 45, you got to see what he could really bring to the table.
I mean, I think he'll have a good NFL career. I mean, Jordan Phillips is having a good NFL career.
He had a great year.
He had a great
year.
season finally. Is Neville
Would that
first
rank
round?
Up there?
Okay.
Would that rank up there in your more surprising OU guys in the NFL?
No. Yes.
Jordan Phillips has had such a good long career.
For me.
I don't know about surprise. I would put like a Stacey McGee.
Yeah, I would have been more surprised if
he's my
Stacey McGee
benchmark.
really stood out.
I distinctly remember watching a Monday night game with the Raiders. I think it was 2.5 years ago or something. Before he signed the big deal with the Redskins, and I looked up and they were like doing the player intros, like Stacey McGee, Oklahoma. I was like,
What?
Like how he's in the NFL right now?
Yeah.
And then they proceeded to talk about how great of a year he had had.
I think the difference for me was that Stacey, when he was a Sooner, I don't think was expected to be much, where Jordan Phillips was supposed to be the superstar, and it never really materialized. So I thought when he got to the NFL, he would not materialize and just kind of go away. Instead, he's found it, and he's gotten much better compared to what he was when they thought he'd be the next big thing in Norman.
Was it Taylor Lewan that Jordan Phillips got into a fight with, the Twitter fight earlier this year?
Yes.
And Taylor Lewan was like, I didn't even know you were in the league anymore, bro.
I think so. Jordan Phillips should have said something about steroid use.
Oh, yeah, because he got suspended for 4 games.
Real quick, Kenneth Murray, 17 tackles for loss this year. Led the team. Ronnie Perkins, 13.5 was second, and Jalen Redmond was third with 11.
Surprising.
And let me look here. Okay.
For those keeping score at home, that was a perfect prediction in the Fearless 20 by Josh McQuistion.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Nailed Gallimore and Perkins on a combo.
Everybody just wants validation these days, don't they?
That's it.
You didn't even play either. You can play college football.
Oh, we're going. Wow.
Hey, let me say real quick.
That wasn't me.
I wanted to make sure before I said anything. Ryan Jones and Levi Draper combined for 0 tackles for loss. So
you're losing.
Anybody was worried about the portal?
The best stat, though, of all the portal stats, is that Jalen Hurts had more tackles.
3
than.
A lot of them had Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson
Troy
Jackson
James
was the one that stood out.
Senior outside linebacker.
Troy James,
had 1.
I mean that quintet combined for 19.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't know if we didn't address this on the last pod because I don't think it had all really happened yet. But like, if you're out there, one, you're probably not a scooper if you're still fretting over the transfers.
It's a good way to put it. You know who follows this stuff daily versus the people that do not follow you.
I don't even know if this is something we need to talk about on our podcast.
The sky is falling.
You're an intelligent OU fan. You're not caught up in people screaming at you on YouTube and all that. You know your stuff. Like, you know, in if you're not a scooper and you are one of those people that like screaming people on YouTube, stop panicking. There's no reason to panic. It's addition by subtraction. Now, it is pointing to a much bigger picture, like we've talked about, which is, and when we did our little survey thing, we probably should have not only put player development but also evaluation in there, because if anything, it shines a light on how, and I think there's a lot of layers to this, Josh, but it shines a light on the evaluation of players that has gone on, and probably more than anything, the fact that I think the other layer to this that you can't ignore is a lot of players have been signed and offered out of desperation, especially on the defensive side of the ball, over the last 5 years. Am I wrong in saying that?
Say it again. I'm not sure.
A lot of the evaluations have been tainted because of desperation, because coaches are not getting the guys that they want, and they think, well, I've got to get somebody, so let's talk ourselves up into, this guy like he's something special, when you're missing something. You really didn't make a good evaluation because you just needed to get this guy. You just needed to fill these spots.
Guy's a great example, and it's a guy that it's related to a coach that's come up from some as of late, Ricky DeBerry.
Yeah.
Everybody convinced themselves Ricky DeBerry was a great player because he was highly ranked. He didn't fit Oklahoma's system. He was a guy that was really highly valued as like a sophomore, and then you saw he had the Alabama hat on the table when he announced. There was no way in hell he could have chosen Alabama. Alabama did not have a spot for him. So people kind of get into these things. We're like, oh, he's highly ranked, or oh, he had this offer. Guys, Rivals doesn't go through and pull out, oh, well, Alabama backed out him, let's pull that offer off his page. Like, it just stays. And that's not just Rivals. That's everybody. Like, so the offer lists are kind of a shaky hill to stand on sometimes. And, that honestly, I can give a good example from this year. I was a little concerned the same thing had happened with Reggie Grimes, that Alabama had kind of walked away from him. And, I mean, because in what world do Oklahoma and South Carolina battle? That doesn't really exist. But when I went to watch him, I really liked him. I see a big, long athlete that has a lot of potential. He is a good risk versus reward type of player. And
see, I thought you were going to name Edgerrin Cooper because, you walked away from him after LSU walked away from him.
Yeah,
and then A&M ends up with him.
Yeah, A&M, and I think Edgerrin Cooper's a good player. I think now the part of me that I want to know is if you could put some true serum in Alex Grinch or Brian Odom.
What was that word?
True serum is awesome.
You got away with
great.
using periphery and just a glorious fat, and then you trip up on serum.
I kind of like. I'm with Bob. I kind of like Truth Serum.
Can we market that? Can we market this?
That's a new hat. That's going to be That's going to be on the first shirt for the pod, man. The hashtag Truth Syrup. God, I've gone everywhere. Anyway,
we need to bribe. We need to do this year. We need to bribe players to use screwed up metaphors in everyday interviews.
Yes.
Can you see I don't know, like Buki getting up and saying, if you put truth syrup in everybody, I mean, and just do it with a straight face.
I think sometimes they do that and we wouldn't have to pay them. There might be a couple guys on the beat that wouldn't be opposed to paying players.
Just to screw around, though. Not because it's a competitive
ours
advantage.
Would be for laughing. Yeah. Theirs would be for...
Compliance would still ban us.
Following people around Atlanta and stuff. Kind of weird.
Okay.
Oh, hi. So, no, but what I was going to say with my truth syrup is... Would Oklahoma take Edgerrin Cooper now? Like, do you think they foresaw?
After
I feel
all
like
these
Levi Draper.
transfers,
Yeah, I feel like Levi Draper was foreseeable. Ryan Jones kind of surprised me. I kind of thought they could sell him on your physical skills are pretty much unlike anybody else on this campus now that Kenneth Murray has left. You have a chance to be a guy if you can put it all together.
But where? I don't know.
No, I mean, I get it.
I think he was just done being, like, tossed around. Like, you know, okay, we put you here, we'll put you here, put you here. It's just like, I want to play offense. I'm not going to do this here. Can I leave?
Was it? Am I remembering this wrong? Because I distinctly, somebody brought this up to me the other day about Ryan Jones. And I remember Bob Stoops. One of the things he would talk about is if, like, a recruit wants to come up, like, on 4th of July, and then you have to leave the house when you're barbecuing and go up and see him and stuff like that. Like, that was something that drove him crazy. Didn't Ryan Jones come in on 4th of July for, like, his official visit or something? Or not official, but, like, it was a holiday or something, and it was just, like, really inconvenient for everybody?
I don't know, because he not flipped. He made the decision so last minute. I don't remember when he actually visited.
He came in, I almost want to say it was like January 15th or something. Like, was his January 27th was his official visit.
I mean, it was,
he committed on the 28th.
That's what I was going to say. Jones and Troy James kind of fit what you're saying, Kerry. Very late in the process. They're flipping Troy James from Arkansas like the week before signing day, and you're trying to convince yourself to be happy about it. And you kind of see a lot of those guys didn't really pan out.
Well,
yeah, I mean, and there's plenty of guys like that. I will still. Ryan Jones is a height, weight, speed guy. I can live with those mistakes. You're betting on a good athlete. Troy James was 6 foot, 265 pounds, and was just always going to have a little bit of a limitation.
But it was kind of that whole, wasn't the class Troy James and K.S. McKinney and
Lott and Thomas. It was Tibbs' first class.
Yeah.
You could see he was still figuring things out. Now, if you give him a grace period, if you acknowledge the first year is going to be difficult because you don't have the
McKinney and Thomas are the only ones left standing.
And McKinney, I
never played.
He just hasn't done anything of note the entire time he's been here. But
I think Lott could have been a player.
He could have.
I mean, he
chose not to.
I mean,
he's playing as a freshman.
Yeah.
Like, considerable amount of snaps.
He actually wanted to come back, but his grades were so screwed up there was no chance.
I
didn't think he could get to NEO because he was.
I told you,
2 years.
Compliance too easy on him.
I mean, and guys, and they made a run that year. I mean, they made a run at Marvin. They were in the final, 2 or 3 there. I mean, I don't think they were going to get him, but they were in the game. The guy that I think they'll probably look back on in that class and really regret is the Akil Byers kid that went to Missouri and has had a nice little start to his career. He was committed to Alabama, and then if I remember right, it kind of got out that he had some grade problems. It was going to be tough to get him to qualify.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And OU could have taken him, and they didn't do it. And now you look back and you're like, that stings a little bit. You could have had that guy. Now, like I said, he's at Missouri, and I'm trying to pull up his stats literally as we speak, but he's had a pretty nice start to his career there.
Yeah, but see, then you give Tibbs that first year, and then he gets to Ronnie Perkins. Then he starts to develop the relationships, and he starts hitting home runs. That's that first year didn't pan out, but since then,
and Overton became a steady player.
The development of the guys on campus with the recruiting, and you look at 2020, Winfrey, Ellison, if he can make them immediate impact players, then he's done his job.
Real quick, Josh, did we talk about Dre Butler?
No, we didn't.
We have not.
In the junior day, just as far as your conversation with him, He has Auburn and Oregon coming up as far as official visits. But, I mean, if you're not going to get Alfred Collins, I would think that he'd be a nice little consolation.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't really know much about him, this is a guy that Rivals just made their number one defensive player or number one junior college recruit in the whole country. He is a very good player and a guy that people kind of wonder, oh, well, how did he end up in JUCO? Well, it wasn't grades because he's a guy that gets he's going to leave in basically 2 semesters. I mean, it's not a deal where he had to get his associates. He had grades. From what I can understand, was kind of a basketball guy. A strength and conditioning coach kind of got him into it, and that coach is the same one that went with him to his official visit this weekend, along with his mother. And talking to him, I got the impression that he is a guy that really liked the trip. Really, I think he was surprised with how much he did like it. Obviously, spending the last year in Kansas, it's a pretty easy, you don't have to worry, like the weather's not going to scare him off or anything like that. I mean, he kind of knows the lay of the land. To me, this is going to come down to OU and Auburn. He is a guy from Georgia, about 2.5 hours from Auburn, so that's a huge advantage for Auburn. But at the same time, Oklahoma probably can tell him, hey, you're going to be in our rotation day one. I don't know that Auburn can make that same promise. And I really think this kind of plays out the way Oklahoma would like, because they get to continue to recruit him hard. They don't have to kind of walk that line of, oh, we're pushing hard, oh, no, we're not. They don't have to worry about that because he's not quite ready to decide anyway. And Oklahoma can work until they know their situation with Alfred Collins, because that's the number one guy. That's the guy that they want. I don't believe they have any plans to take a second defensive lineman. They're going to get one or the other if they can. And
Josh
Collins, by then they should know where they stand.
All right. 5 guys go into the portal. Try to explain to people why this is not an and situation. It's still either or.
Well, I get why people would feel that way, but guys, listen to what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about guys like Levi Draper and Ryan Jones who have done almost nothing. And that's no offense to either player. That's just the reality. They're a loss that Oklahoma is going to feel just because the numbers at linebacker are so slight right now. I mean, they've got 5 scholarship players for 2 linebacker positions on campus this spring, and one of them's a true freshman going to be learning his way through things. So, and the other one is Jamal Morris, who we reported earlier this week has moved from safety to linebacker. So you're talking about 3 guys with any quantifiable experience playing linebacker in this defense, and Asamoah, Deshaun White, and Caleb Kelly. That's not even a 2 deep. So you've got to get some players, and I don't expect – I mean, it's really getting too late at this point for Oklahoma to go in the grad transfer market and try to bring somebody in here at semester so they have a body. But they need help at safety. They need help at linebacker. Along the defensive line, that's one of the few positions, even without Ronnie Perkins to start next year, they have some depth. There are some bodies there. You got Marcus Hicks and Corey Roberson that just redshirted. Perrion Winfrey and Josh Ellison are on campus, 2 really good junior college defensive linemen. Jordan Kelly coming back. Zach McKinney, I don't know. I mean, maybe he finally kind of finds a role as the Dylan Fa'amatu. I don't know. But then you've got Redmond, Stripling, Stokes, Isaiah Thomas, Grimes and Arinze are coming in at semester. I mean, there's a lot of depth. Not at semester, but in the summer. You've got a lot of depth on the defensive line. At linebacker and safety, you are shockingly thin when you consider that Oklahoma is, again, 1 knock or an injury away from Justin Broyles being their starting safety for 12, 13, 14 games next year.
That'll never happen again. I refuse to believe that will ever happen again. But, I mean, you've got Trey Norwood coming back. You'll have Buki. Woody Washington, I thought he did his coverage was, you go back and watch the game, there was nothing wrong with his coverage. There was some perfect throws while he was covering. But outside, we'll see what happens with Cradell. I mean, he's got to make a move at some point, you would expect.
I mean, all those young guys have to, at some point, be not necessarily.
Corner's a bigger worry to me than safety almost.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it kind of depending on
if you don't stay healthy.
Yeah, they got it really helped them out, didn't it, that Motley made the jump that he did this year.
Huge.
Because what is Woody Washington? I know he played some nickel, but I got the feeling that was just a pinch. Like that was this is what we got to do. We don't really have any other options.
Thanks, Bookie.
Is he a corner or is he a safety?
Oh, he's a safety. He's always been a safety.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we thought he was. We thought he was a
bit.
corner. I mean, we all thought that, but then Grinch made it very clear that he's a safety. He's been a safety since he's been here.
Okay,
since those opening practices.
Okay, then I just missed that part because I had a feeling that he'd gone back and forth a little bit, but that's just on.
No,
me.
I think Eddie, when we went out for like the 2-a-days portion, like he was working with corners then, but it seemed like he got moved to safety pretty quickly.
That seems right, but I don't. That seems right though. I don't remember exactly.
Maybe you were more over on the offense.
I think I was.
Yeah, I was.
You're talking about like the first day of practice,
like
or whatever.
We had open. Yeah. Our little 15
Yeah, we weren't there
thing.
long enough during the bowl practices to really know, and he had already been moved. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how they try and rework this thing, and I'm very interested to see now that you are a full year in on Alex Grinch, what he basically like. I kind of envision this like Grinch coming back in this spring and saying, "All right, the trial run's over. If you're not putting up results, you're out. You're done. I'm done with you. I'll kill you." And then he chokes out a freshman.
Or they just
walk on. Obviously,
they just have a door they bring that's just like a portal. That's just like they set up like one of those injury tents.
Well, wouldn't be the worst idea. Maybe that's the next $1 million idea. We make something that somebody could enter, and then it immediately put them into the portal.
It reads their DNA scan like there's a little barcode on them or something.
Well, it'd take the OU DNA out of them first, and then you'd be wiped clean.
It would not. We're not talking about the Ron Tatum I declare portal.
Yeah, where'd he end
That's
up?
still, God, I love that.
He's at NEO, right?
Still,
he's at NEO, but he's picked up some offers. I don't think he's signed though.
Okay. I would imagine that would come to a head though, right? In February? See a 1 year guy up at JUCO?
He should be. I mean,
yeah.
There shouldn't be a reason he'd have to stay.
Yeah.
All I'm seeing on his timeline is a lot of people followed and unfollowed him from day to day. He's got one of those updates. People don't do that. That's lame.
You know who had one of those forever was Daniel Brooks. I think I might have unfollowed him just because I got tired of 3 people have followed you, 4 people have unfollowed you.
Mm-hmm. It's bad.
Well, it's going to be fun to wrap this thing up, and then there's going to be something that breaks, and we're going to have to reconvene at some point. That's the way it usually works.
It's going to be really interesting because you're going to have the board meeting, the Board of Regents meeting.
Like, I don't think that this goes for 7 more days.
No, but what I'm saying is the roughing part of it.
Sure.
Like I don't think Lincoln is like, even if they announce Joey McGuire is hired, I don't know if they announce that Ruffin is he's retiring, or I don't know.
There has to be a correspondent. Well, I guess there doesn't have to be, because you could just say McGuire's
contract's
filling.
running out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The whole Ruffin thing is just so awkward.
It is awkward, but
and Josh will tell you this. Like, it's not just awkward for us. I think it's awkward inside the coaches' offices too. With people just not. I mean, there's just never been anything like. I doubt anybody has ever been on a staff where some days a position coach isn't at practice.
Yeah.
Or at least having to work with one hand behind his back.
Or on the road recruiting. Like, that would be like,
Like, I think that's something that would make the fans a little pissed off, is the fact that if he's not out on the road recruiting, which we've said that he isn't.
Right.
Like,
I've been told that he's not.
They have Zach Hansen filling in for Bulwer, technically, right?
Mm-hmm. So
why wouldn't they have another person? Like, why wouldn't you have another person out there?
Because he's an assistant and you can't get the waiver to get someone else out there.
That just for as much attention as they put into the recruiting world, for as much hands-on as Lincoln Riley is in the recruiting game. I mean, Jesus Christ, the guy started his own TikTok account. Like, that's shocking to me that they would make in a way, an excuse, or they would work around it, I guess. Does that make sense, Josh? Like that's very surprising to me that Riley would go to those lengths to, I guess, in a way, keep his mentor around.
Yeah,
I know that sounds bad, but it kind of is what it is. I think everybody that follows the team, covers the team, knows what we're talking about, kind of gets the gist of it. It's surprising to me.
In year one, it was totally understandable. Lincoln was a guy that hadn't, there wasn't, he was so young, had only been a coordinator for a couple of years. He didn't have all the wealth of experience that a lot of guys, like Bob had been a coordinator for like 10 years by the time he finally became a head coach, or at least 6, 7, 8. He had more time on the clock than Lincoln did. And Lincoln was not only that, but he was very young. It made all the sense in the world for him to have Ruffin McNeil. But I don't know about you guys. When that hire happened, I thought it was that year. I thought it was a rental. Like, okay, they're going to, he's going to help Lincoln kind of figure out the day-to-days, how all that stuff works, kind of, maybe just kind of maintain some continuity within the staff. It was all going to, it made some sense. But as we've gone on, it seems like McNeil's ability to be a part of recruiting has dropped to almost zero. And then you started to hear, well, okay, in practice, the guy, like we've talked about, the guy has health issues. He's not engaged in every drill. He's not involved with everything that's happening on the field. And with a staff that knows they're that close to doing what, to achieving the ultimate goal, I'm surprised that we don't hear more. I don't want to say animosity, because I think it's pretty clear Ruffin's incredibly likable and everybody does like him. But I'm surprised there's not more, just hard feelings about the way it's played out and the way that things are kind of handled sometimes.
I think everybody
kind of like the old OU baseball T-shirt. Got 25 guys pulling on the same rope. Yeah. It's more like 24 and a quarter.
I think everybody is they just deal with it how they deal with it, because they know he's protected, basically.
And listen, I don't think
he's a made man.
I don't think
cannot say anything to him.
I don't think it would be accurate to say if Ruffin McNeil wasn't part of the program, all of a sudden they're going to beat LSU. I don't think it's that simple. None of us are saying that.
It's very good, fellas. He's a made man. Can't mess with him.
Oh, guys, I'll be perfectly honest, and I'm an honest person just to my core. But even saying what I've said, I'm like, ooh, like I hope I don't get any blowback on that crap. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, we've danced around it enough. We've talked about all this stuff before.
I agree.
It should be. I
don't feel like we're being harsh.
It'd be a disservice to act like it's not, like there's something not there.
Yeah,
it is very odd, because you don't get a lot of inner access to anything anymore. But when you know stuff like this is going on, it's just like, how can we not talk about it? Like, it's been going on for a while. How do we not? Like, we can't just keep pretending like it's not an issue.
Yeah.
And we've done it in writing. We've done it on the pod. We've done it on the message board. It's like we've never hit this stuff.
Well, it's better than me breaking down a Spencer Rattler Bleacher Report video, which my breakdown will be up later this afternoon. Never.
Which, but back to your point, Josh, there was a time when Lincoln was taking over Bob's program, and that's when he needed a strong voice of his own, and that was Ruffin. And I think he served his purpose by being that guy. He was the guy that helped Lincoln kind of set his culture as the head coach. Now he's been there for several years. I think Lincoln is well respected. I think Lincoln is sometimes feared. I'll go that far, because I think as a coach, it's just like with you talk to Bob Stoops now. It's like, Bob, why are you so carefree and growing a beard and saying what you want and not worry? He's like, because you can't be that way when you're a head coach. You have to be respected. You have to be feared a little bit. And I think Lincoln's developed that persona now. I think he can do it without Ruffin.
He's walking around with a little bit of
training wheels, if you will.
Walk around with his dick out, basically what you're saying.
glad we get something profane in this podcast before we're done.
You
think
nailed
it's fair.
it, Eddie. That sounded exactly like where Kerry was going.
I think it's fair.
All right.
These are big hires, though. I think
no.
it's going to be very telling of the direction of the program. If you can swing a Joey Maguire,
it's a home
think
run.
it's
Absolute home run.
It's bigger than anything they've done in the last couple months around here. Is that fair?
And it fits within what Lincoln is all about, which an unconventional guy coming in and doing a really good job.
Whoa!
That's what happened. Woo.
You can hear that coming.
Yeah, that was train was
shelter
rolling
over
down
here.
the track.
What were you saying, Josh?
No, I was going to say
Coronavirus
to me,
coming your way.
To me, can it transmit through audio? That's concerning. No,
By 2030.
The problem, or not the problem, I think this would be as good a hire as maybe Oklahoma's made since what, Bedenbaugh? I mean, like, as far as a guy that's wanted, brings value instantly. Like, and Bedenbaugh, I don't even think we knew how good he was when he showed up.
Grinch.
Oh, you're right. That's fair.
But no, Bedenbaugh, that was a huge home run hire.
Yep.
And that was OU being able to take advantage of West Virginia, who didn't want to pay.
Sure.
It's probably a reason why Holgerson left in the first place.
And I will say, people have asked me, how much was he involved in that Baylor defensive line? From what I've gathered, Frank Oakham is entirely the reason that defensive line was as good as it was last year. It sounded like he was the defensive line coach.
And Rule took him to the Giant?
Yes, Rule took him to
Panthers.
Panthers. Yep.
Panthers,
Yep.
yeah.
So,
Giants are just taking everybody, so I assume that's where he went.
yeah, fair enough. But no, what I would say though is it is impossible to duplicate the relationships Joey Maguire has in Texas high school football. Like, you cannot, it's like Bobby Jack Wright, kind of the legend of Bobby Jack Wright, but in reality and better. Like, Bobby Jack
He's
Wright knew a lot of guys in
1999
Texas.
Bobby Jack Wright.
Yes, he is that well connected. He is in with all the important players in the Texas High School Coaches Association. If Joey calls and is like, hey, we would like this guy to come to campus, I think in some cases you're talking about a 50% improvement of that guy showing up that week. Like, a coach is going to bring him. The head coach that knows Joey and respects him is going to call his D-line coach and be like, hey, get Tommy or Joe or whatever the kid's name is, get him up there. They want to see him. And he has that kind of pull.
Do you say maybe he's Bobby Jack served his role, but let's face it, no one dominated Texas like Texas. Is he like maybe the new Tim Brewster?
That's an interesting comparison. I mean, I think aside from some of the unsavory rumors you hear about Brewster from time to time, I think I mean, when you talk to kids about Brewster, he has that energy that they love and they kind of respond to it. And I could see that with Maguire. I mean, like I said, I think Maguire, whether he has done it yet at a level that Oklahoma, would expect, which he hasn't, let's just be honest. But Eddie's been around him. We've all, I think with the exception of Bob, Bob's been around him. We've all been around Joey Maguire. If there is a guy that you think that dude has everything you need to be a great recruiter, it's friggin' Joey Maguire. Like, that dude has all the tools, going to be great in a room, going to talk to mom, going to make the kid feel great, has a lot of energy, and is just incredibly likable. And then when he has something to sell like the University of Oklahoma, there's a lot to like there in that sales pitch.
Well, that is your emergency pod. Just play that part back if he ends up being the hire, and then
We'll cut that.
Have everything that you need to know.
We'll
about
cut
Joey
that,
Maguire.
put it on the board.
So yeah, I mean that kind of wraps it up. And trust me, if there were other names we'd been hearing besides Maguire, we would have thrown them out there. So it does look like it is pretty much the ship is steering in that direction.
I guess we didn't even talk about the other side of it. If he returns to Baylor, because that makes things a little bit more awkward, just as far as what's going to happen. I don't think that there is a second name out there right now that you would say, okay, well, they didn't get Joey Maguire, because I think in a way they're kind of not creating a spot, but it's like filling in pieces to a puzzle almost.
I'd hate to think that, that Joey Maguire's hire has them headed in a certain direction, and if he doesn't take the job, then they
just throw their hands in the air and
and bring Ruffin back and okay, well, we can just hire somebody for Jay Boulware. I mean, you would hope that if they've got a home run ready to go, that they still make a home run hire even if it's not Maguire. So
yeah, that I will say that's not the impression I have.
Double in the gap
instead of a
grand slam.
Seeing eye single.
No, this would be the home run.
They'd
have to settle for the double.
Do they hit a trash bag though, or a bucket before?
Well, if they're playing in Houston, obviously they would.
All right,
the same thing's going on in St. Louis.
Welcome back, Bob. We're done.
Did we talk the black unicorn?
I don't know what that is.
Hell, have you just?
Josh, did we talk the another?
I knew when you said it, they weren't going to know what you were talking about.
I still don't know.
I have no idea what's going on right now.
2023 running back Reuben Owens has dubbed himself the Black Unicorn, and he's been offered by OU, and he's showing up Saturday. It's another mini junior
We're not talking about 7th graders right now, okay? I know my math's not very good, but I check out at 2022.
I've been looking at a couple 2040 quarterbacks here working out in the state with some local guys we'll keep an eye on.
We're trying to find out that year specifically.
Yeah,
that would be great if we singled in on just 6th graders.
Oh, sorry, we're just focusing on women's ovaries right now. We'll get back to you on your kid later, but we're in the developmental stage of cloning.
Your 9th grader is too far along. There's not enough room for growth. We're really waiting for the right guy to come along.
We focus on 3rd graders. How you doing? We recruit for Penn State.
Kale, we noticed you haven't had enough children. No. Could you maybe knock some people up? We'd like to see some more of your children.
And you're blocked again. You're back to block.
I would have blocked. I just said he's a great candidate to produce children. Well, he didn't succeed. But we can put him with a different woman. Now I'm blocked.
Yeah, yes, you will. You're going to edit that part.
Not me,
No,
Cal.
I'm not going to edit that out.
You just made that worse.
Not me, Cal.
That's going to do it. We've killed the pod. I've killed the pod, I think. So thanks to Josh, thanks to Eddie, thanks to Bob, who apparently left us. I don't know if you're getting paid for this episode or not. I am Kerry Murdoch. We'll see you guys back here again next week on the Midfirst. Go to midfirst.com/U40, the Midfirst Bank Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.